Tables and seats are now on sale for the biggest night in the digital video calendar, the TellyCast Digital Video Awards. We're celebrating excellence in the only award ceremony created especially for the social video industry, with over 100 channels, shows and series shortlisted across 27 categories. It all takes place on the evening of 5th of June during South by Southwest London Week at the luxurious Londoner Hotel in Leicester Square. The guest list reads like the who's who in the next generation of entertainment. So book your table, half table or seat now and join the talent and executives shaping the content industry of tomorrow. Just visit digitalvideoawards.co.uk to secure your place now. The TellyCast Digital Video Awards, the biggest night in the digital video calendar. We'll see you there.
TellyCast.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby and welcome to another TellyCast. Should you spend money on YouTube? What's paid media and what can it do? And what are the synergies between content, YouTube channels and paid media? Well, I'm here with Wayne Davison, Chief Revenue Officer at Little Dot Studios, as we continue in the latest of our series of practical and strategic YouTube tips for TV industry businesses and content creators. Welcome to the show, Wayne.
Thank you. That was very good.
Thank you. There we go. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm really well. It's a bit warm in the studio
It is
today.
a little bit warm, and that might pay later. We'll see.
Yes. Well, let's see. And we're going to be talking about money, which gets everybody hot under the collar, certainly in the TV industry and the content industry. So when we started talking about getting you involved in this latest episode, it was really interesting to hear about paid media, because this is something that, we've talked about tips so far in terms of strategies, some real practical tips on optimization. We've talked about multi-channel strategy so far, but now we're talking about money. So let's get down to the money. And, the concept of paying money to earn money is a bit strange. So, but this is what we're going to get into. So, sure. First of all, tell us about your role then. What does your role at Little Dot encapsulate as Chief Revenue Officer?
It's a whole host of different things. So I joined the business about 8 years ago. I came in from the TV business, actually. I used to be in business affairs on production and distribution. So I came in with that kind of lens on things, working with distribution teams, that side. More recently, last 3-4 years, I've been working as Chief Revenue Officer. I look after our ad sales business. I look after our paid media teams. That includes our ad sales business includes teams in Australia and the UK, as well as partners that we have elsewhere. I look after our distribution business in Germany. I look after our SaaS product, which we acquired a couple of years ago, last year, in fact, sorry. And that's
software as a service.
Software as a service, thank you. Yes, sorry. This is a problem with this job. Lots of acronyms. Please stop me as we go along. And then I also sit on the board of one of our other companies. So my role is pretty varied, but I kind of, in terms of this conversation, for the purposes of what we're talking about, is paid media, and the ad sales side is two ends of the same spectrum, I guess, in terms of money in and money out. Okay.
Well, let's talk about that then. In my intro, I talked about spending money to make money, and the concept of spending money for anybody within the who owns IP is a bit of a foreign concept. So if I'm an IP owner, or TV production business or a studio network, etc., why should I spend money on YouTube?
Look, there's kind of multiple reasons, and I think one thing I'll also say is the grammar of this gets incredibly confusing for everybody. The piece around spending money, you hear people talk about media buying, media spending, paid media. They're broadly the same thing. So first of all, clear out that. I think in terms of why, it's all about delivering outcomes, and those outcomes are very dependent on what you're trying to achieve out of that. At Little Dot, we're working with lots of different types of partners. So we work with sports rights holders, content owners, producers, distributors, broadcasters, brands. All of those different types of partners that we're working with have very different outcomes they're trying to achieve. Yeah. So, and what we see actually a lot with the partners that we work with is when, before they come to us, they're spending money for that purpose and they achieve that purpose. It's, it may be for building an audience. It may be targeting a type of demographic. It may be that you're trying to move people from the platform, off the platform, to websites, to tickets, to whatever it is. So there's the investment in media on the platform serves those different functions depending on what they're trying to achieve.
Okay. And this is what, should we really be focusing our thoughts on YouTube at this point, because it is the world's second biggest search engine?
It is indeed.
And should we just think about that in terms of visibility? So paid media, in terms of YouTube, is about getting eyeballs rather than generally, building very slowly through organic growth, about optimizing videos we've talked about, making the right sort of videos, the right sort of length, the different formats, all the rest of the content, making your content as great as possible.
Yep.
And that's going to give you some growth, but perhaps slowly. But this is about supercharging that growth and bringing it in front of more and more eyeballs, right?
Correct. Well, in that particular context, absolutely right. The important thing that I would say around paid media is the kind of synergies with the organic activities. So you can just spend money without all that organic work. You can just if you want to get a set of eyeballs to a piece of content, you can spend the amount of money that you require to get the number of eyeballs that you require. Everybody's happy in that kind of broad context. You hit those numbers. But if you want long-term growth, the organic alongside the paid is really, really key. So the synergies between those two activities becomes very important. And the reason for that is twofold. One, the opportunities that paid drives, it can drive an audience to a set of things, but the spin-off of that is also what's called the earned viewing. So the earned viewing that comes from paid viewing starts to increase the value of the spend. So for the sake of argument, you spend £1 on the platform, you might get 1,000 eyeballs back. If you're doing it in isolation, if you spend £1 and you're already building a channel, you might get 1,300 eyeballs back because you've paid for those first set, and then you get 300 off the back of that as an earned viewing. Now, that's a very high percentage, but just for the sake of argument. So the synergies between those two things becomes really, really important in terms of how you're doing that.
Okay, so it's a case of optimizing your YouTube channels and making them as discoverable as possible.
Yep.
Because if you're just doing organic work on your tagging and, optimizing and making it, amazingly discoverable.
Yep.
If you're starting from scratch, or you're starting from very small levels, then it is going to take you a little while to climb the mountain, isn't it? Because all you're doing is making sure that your videos can appear in other people's feeds.
Correct.
And can appear next to videos that are similar in content. And because obviously YouTube wants to drive viewers, wants to keep them on the platform and serve them content that they're probably going to like. So that's where the optimization comes in. But if we're talking about paid as well, adding that into the mix here, is it a case of, doing paid media as well as optimization? Does that create an even bigger effect that's the bigger than the sum of its parts, if you like?
In short, yes. And there's different ways of approaching it, right? So there's different ad formats that can be used in that. So there's what's called in-feed, in-stream, and then there's another TrueView for Action, which is a product that moves people in different directions. But in-feed is kind of discovery. So you talk about the organic piece. How do you get your video top of homepage? How do you get it in suggested videos? You can actually pay for that to happen. So you then, depending on who you're trying to target, who your audience groups are, what the segments are, the territories you're trying to focus on, there's a whole host of different things to think about. Whereas the organic side is, we're just going to push this out. It's going to scale across the whole platform. Paid is very much about targeting. So in-feed is basically like payment for search engine, paid search.
So it's basically the results are coming out at the top of your feed, with an ad, basically.
It says sponsored, those kind of things. So, and that can be, and there's different routes to doing it. There's different kind of methods of how you apply that. So you've got in-feed, which is the first piece. Then in-stream is basically video ads. So as you see within YouTube, you get served an ad that will feature within that. So in stream, you can pay to feature in certain types of content for different audiences. What you see versus what I see as an ad will depend on your behaviors on the platform. So we might be watching the same piece of content, but the ad you're getting served is specific to the audience type that you fall into, whereas it might be totally different to the type of ad that I'm getting. So that in-stream ad is about that kind of targeting route.
Okay, so if I want to place an ad for my content, whatever that is, it could be my new sitcom channel. We were talking with Ali Penelope from Little Dot a couple of weeks ago about a sitcom channel and how we might scale that.
Yep.
So if I was launching a new sitcom channel and I really wanted to give it a push through paid media, can I choose pretty much any video to have my video served in stream, if you like? Essentially, any video that's uploaded onto YouTube, you can advertise against.
Yes,
right?
That is true. But what you want to do is build a strategy around it. As all of the other things you've spoken about with all of my other colleagues, it's about building a strategy for how you want that content to be visible in front of an audience. So if you're building a new sitcom channel, you might have a 15-second trailer that you want to run as an in-stream video ad that's just an awareness proposition. So that's kind of starting to build a bit of momentum, a bit of awareness around that. You then may have a weekly upload on the channel. So you might want to put that in as a discovery ad. So it's a clickable ad. What the important thing is, it works in a very similar way to the organic activity, which is if somebody clicks into the ad but doesn't into the content, let's call it content for the sake of this conversation. If they click into the content and don't stay, it doesn't do the job that you're trying to do, because you're not then getting the earned viewing off the back of it that I was talking about before.
Yeah.
So the goal is to serve the types of content that people still want to see to those types of audiences. So it's invest in the paid to support the organic. That continues to resonate through the process, because you need that audience that you're targeting as part of your advertising spend to actually want to watch the content and actually want to stay with the content.
Yeah, that's it. This is all about signposting people to your content, isn't it? I mean, you're never going to get people to watch the content who aren't interested. You don't want them to, because you want people to stay with you once they're there. You want them to be there watching your content for, not quite 100% of the time, but most of the time, right?
You'd be very surprised how wrong people get that, because they get caught by the vanity metric of, I've got a view on this piece of content, and therefore they hit a set of numbers. Now, again, kind of depends on the purpose of what you're trying to achieve. But if you're going out with a vanity number to say to a brand partner, look how many eyeballs we've got, brilliant, that's fine. But the actual data underlying that is, yes, you might have 1 million views on that piece of content, but nobody stayed longer than the first 3 seconds of it.
Yeah.
So
people watch the content, but they didn't really watch it.
Correct. So, and data is a brilliant thing. It can tell you whatever story you want it to tell you, as I'm sure you've heard many times. But that is, that's very much true of kind of how we operate with our content. You want to make sure it's actually serving the purpose that it's trying to achieve. So the process of sitting that paid media with experts that know what they're doing is really important, because people will do I can get you 1 million views. Brilliant. Off you go. Good luck. But don't bother coming back, because it's not going to deliver you that kind of long-term scale that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And the long-term scale and what you are trying to achieve, as we talked about in our intro here, is making money. I mean, it could be one of your objectives, but let's focus on that.
Sure.
So you've launched our sitcom channel, and
has it got a name?
Have a think.
I'm not creative in this. I'm not too early. Too early.
Okay. Just call it LOL.
Fine.
Or
great.
something like that.
Yeah,
there
right.
you go.
I think somebody did.
I'm sure there's another one.
I'm sure I think somebody did
already. It's a bit obvious, but there we are. So we've launched LOL, and we've launched that with a short 30-second ad for the channel, which makes people aware that there's a channel out there.
Yep.
And we're also backing that up with short clips once we've launched every new episode, let's say once a week.
Sure.
So how do we get to making money then? Now we're spending that money.
Yep.
And we're hopefully optimizing our video on the organic growth side. And we've done the right job, or a company such as yours with your paid media experts.
Sure. This does sound like a sales pitch. I didn't mean it to.
Yeah.
But keep going.
But, they're targeting the exact audience that we want for our channel. When do we get to the money coming in? Because that's when everybody's, at that point, it's like everyone's getting a bit nervous. It's like, okay, see the numbers coming up and the watch time, but when are we going to start making some? Want to get ahead in digital-first content? The Drop is the go-to newsletter for industry professionals, delivering insider news, trends, and insights straight to your inbox. Navigate the fast-changing landscape of digital-first production, distribution, and monetization. Sign up now for free at dropmedia.co.uk and stay informed with The Drop.
Well, I think, look, the reality of can I get back what I spent is possibly, and over a long period of time, the return on investment from paid media directly into ad revenue off the back of it is pretty out of proportion. But the goal is to supercharge a channel, in this case, supercharge your channel, supercharge the content, so it's getting to the audience faster than it would do if you were just trying to build it, as you said, as an organic process. And that is a slow process. So the money is coming in anyway. So, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but the revenue on a channel, as long as you've set up all the things you need to set up, you've got your AdSense account all attached to it and all of that kind of thing, you are generating money throughout that process. Anything that is an ad, so even if you put a discovery ad and somebody's clicked into that, YouTube treats that as an ad, so it doesn't serve advertising on that piece of content. So you're making the money from the earned viewing on other content that the audience has watched. If this makes sense. So the piece of content you've paid for to put in front of the eyeballs of the audience is not going to make money directly from itself because it is treated by YouTube as an ad.
Right.
But everything else that you're then served in your homepage or in suggested video then starts to generate money, and you basically. What you're doing is building scale and building audience to the channel so that the long-term benefits and effect of that is that you're generating revenue from the advertising that's going on to the channel. We ran various tests over the last several years. I'm still yet to be convinced it's a really effective way to drive revenue directly, but certainly as an indirect kind of impact, I think it's a significant thing. And that advertising revenue comes through multiple different routes.
In general, though, I mean, what we're looking at is if we're launching our new channel, we've got to think about this is marketing. Yeah, this is probably the only marketing that you've got to do. So any channel that goes out there, you're going to promote your shows and you're going to promote your brand as well as part of that. So really it's about, as a content owner, an IP owner, it's really thinking about if you're launching your own channel, it's you've got to market it.
It's about visibility. It's, and again, like I said, it's about outcomes. If there are, let's say there's a live event that's off the back of that show, there's an ad product within the YouTube ecosystem or in the Google ecosystem called TrueView for Action, which is a clickable element that can take you into ticketing or into a website or into those kind of things. So there's a potential to drive indirect revenue from the marketing proposition that you're building. And we do that with some of the sports partners we work with where, they're trying to get bums on seats at an event or whatever. Using that kind of ad product can help. It's a layer on top of your in-feed or in-stream that is clickable that takes you into those different routes. So there's the indirect stream of revenue that you can possibly earn. That might be merchandising, it might be products, it might be, as I say, ticketing or other routes. There's some partners we work with who are trying to get subscription to their service. It may be in that kind of, it may be an SVOD, for example. Can it drive additional subscribers to that service, and therefore you're driving indirect revenue off of the platform?
Yeah.
But it's hard to drive direct revenue or to show a very obvious correlation between I've invested £1 million, I've got £1.5 million off the back of it. That will take time. So, again, it depends. As you say, it's a very, very much a marketing proposition. We work with some kids content partners, that is, where they, the market, the TV market is, the arse has fallen out of it pretty much. And those TV shows used to be the route to the merchandise, to all the products. How do you get stuff out on Amazon or in Target, or depending on where you are? That indirect impact is really important in that kids space, because there is nowhere really that gains a visibility for a kids product, a new kids product, like TV used to. TV shows, as you know, were loss leaders for the product. They gave them away to the broadcasters. There's nowhere to put it anymore. So YouTube started to become an interesting space where people are using the platform to drive product sales into retail. So that's another route depending on your kind of purpose. But again, it requires a significant investment. This is not a cheap exercise. If you can invest, $1,000, you can invest $5,000, you get effectively what you pay for. And when you spend is also really important. So you might want to hold off actually spending the money straight away. You might want to wait until you build a bit of organic activity, because actually the earned viewing on the back of that is more significant because there's somewhere else for the audience to go, having spent the money in the first place.
Yeah. And so for people getting started on YouTube right from square one, I think that there are two levels that they have to pass through, two sort of stages, if you like, right from square one. You've got 500 subscribers. Once you get that, there are certain opportunities to earn revenue, but 1,000 subscribers is really the main opportunity when it opens up AdSense opportunities and you can start taking and activating.
I'm glad you're saying that, because I can't remember what the threshold was, but if it's 1,000, I'll take that. It used to be, I think it used to be 8, but it's shifted now.
Yeah. And there's other criteria as well. I think there's it's 3,000 views as well.
Yep.
But there's also another criteria about shorts, which is something like 3 million views, which very, very few people are going to get to. Right?
But also the revenue coming back from shorts at the moment is still not great. So it's a different piece. But yes, once you've hit those thresholds, that's when you start to earn from AdSense revenues and from other people spending on the platform money coming into your channel.
Yeah. So it probably makes sense to wait until that point before you start to invest into paid.
Well, it also depends. It may be that you want to use it to accelerate to get to that point.
Yeah.
So, we're working with some partners where they want to increase their subscriber count. We've found some interesting routes to do that through paid media. So it may be that they just want to get over that hump. So you can invest to get over that hump. And actually that's the same point, right? It's kind of what point do you want to engage with it? You can wait and see if you can build the organic, or you can throw it in front of as many people as you want through the paid strategies. So even at that early stage, that's actually may not be a terrible solution.
Yeah.
Just depends on what you want to do and how much you want to spend.
Yeah. Okay. So in recent months, we've seen some big studios and publishers as well, who are starting to sell ads direct as well, or space on their own YouTube channels. So you don't have to go via Google to buy advertising on their channel. You can buy directly from their sales teams.
Yep.
Tell us about the rationale for that. And I'm assuming these are sizable businesses that obviously have got their own sales teams. But just explain that a little bit, and why you would prefer possibly to buy directly from BBC Studios, for example, rather than going through YouTube.
Or Little Dot Studios, if you will.
Or Little Dot Studios.
Again, sales pitch. So let me go backwards one step before you get to there. So in terms of kind of where revenue is coming from without direct sales, the ad revenue is coming through two sets of routes, I guess, through Google selling. Most of it is self-serve. So actually, as an ad agency or a brand, you don't need to go to a sales team to buy inventory. You have the ability to just log into their platform and buy space. In the way I've been talking about, this is the other end of the spectrum that I've already spoken about. So you talk about paid media in the buying side, or media buying. The media buying agencies are doing exactly this, and that is where the revenue is going into your channels. So you have kind of, I guess there's a funnel of activities. So there's the very basic stuff is YouTube standard auction products. So you can buy non-skippable, skippable ads, bumper ads that are in stream and that go on the channel, and you buy them in an auction. So think eBay. You set a price that you want to spend. If that inventory is available to the target audience you're trying to reach on that particular channel, or on that set of content, actually, forget about the channels in the auction case, you're just trying to reach an audience, it will then spend the money. And if it's not spending the money, you might need to lift your price a little bit. But the what is called the CPM, the cost per thousand that is being spent, is very low. The CPMs are very poor on an auction product. So you'll see auction revenue coming in at that first stage. And there's the next stage in the funnel is what YouTube actually, they've changed it on Monday last week, called YouTube Select. YouTube Select is their kind of what used to be their top 5% is now their top 1% as of this change of their channels. Now that's algorithmically identified. So they're saying it may be, they're curating them into different groups. So it may be entertainment, but what they see as entertainment is different to what the TV industry calls entertainment. So you might include Mr. Beast in that. It might be a whole bunch of creators doing prank content or whatever, but it falls into entertainment, sport, lifestyle, a whole host of different content groups. So you can buy that then either direct from YouTube or through their self-serve product. So it's called Instant Reserve. So it's a reserved product. So you're basically, rather than the auction piece, which is just send it out, hope the stuff comes back, you can say, okay, I want to reserve this inventory like you would in telly. And I want to spend, but you have to spend a higher CPM to achieve that. So that's the kind of next tier of activity. But again, it's not targeted. It's targeted in audience types, but it's not targeted in content types. After that, you then have the direct sales opportunity. So the direct sales opportunity is very much akin to like TV. We have a whole set of channels as a publisher, BBC Studios, any broadcaster, you talk to them, they have their own channels. I can come to you and say, here's these channels. You can layer on the audience targeting, but also you want to contextually align your brand to our content. So you might have some cooking products. You want to put that content against that advert against the Gordon Ramsay channel. We can sell you that channel, but we can sell that at a much higher premium than you would on either the Instant Reserve YouTube Select or the auction price. So the rewards are significantly higher, but the effort that is required in doing that is also proportionately higher too.
Is the targeting much more effective then when you're buying direct? I mean, again, if I'm a cookware brand and I want to advertise against a Gordon Ramsay show, then if I can outbid everybody else, then putting my ad on that show, what's the difference between that and actually buying direct from the Gordon Ramsay?
You can't specifically buy the channels if you're buying it through the auction processes. So if you're bidding, you can't buy content, you can buy audience. So it's targeting me, it's targeting you as an individual.
Okay.
It doesn't matter where you are on the platform.
So it's not going to be on the Gordon Ramsay
It could be
channel
anywhere.
unless you're buying it.
Depending on what you're watching, Justin, that ad will serve against that.
So it's following you around the internet.
Correct. So as a brand, you're not getting the confidence that it may necessarily be in the places you really want it to be.
Got it.
Whereas you can reserve that inventory on Gordon's channel or on, Nigella's channel or whatever it is you want to buy, like you do with telly. I want to go against this particular show at 9:00 on ITV.
Yeah.
This is exactly the same, but with a total, a new demographic, and you can target that demographic. So it may be still that I'm watching Gordon's channel, you're watching Gordon's channel. If I've layered on an audience targeting piece to that, and they're trying to find people who cook, they're not coming anywhere near me because I'm terrible at cooking. So, but you may be an expert chef, in which case you're getting that ad against the Gordon channel, and they're comfortable as a brand that it's against the brand safe content that they're trying to achieve. Yeah. So that's the difference, is that it's all very much it's contextual alignment between brand and content, but with an audience layer on top of it.
Got it.
Not to get too buried in this because this is a horrible space, but the cookies start being deprecated on platforms. If you can't target audience anymore in the way that you used to because you have no external influences that are visible, you are then wholly dependent on contextual alignment. So that whole piece becomes even more important.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different talk show.
Okay. Well, now I understand why Google is now one of the biggest companies in the world, right?
They've done it very well.
There's lots of different ways to spend money with them.
There is indeed.
Yeah. And we all know about, you've been followed around the internet with ads as you as an individual. That's very, very clever technology. So let's wrap this up, Wayne, in terms of, we're talking about, this is marketing opportunities, paid media on YouTube. It's a long game, much in the same way that optimization is, and publishing, and all the different skill sets that you need to build a successful organic performance on YouTube. Same comes with paid media. You need essentially, the more you can be much more targeted, and it can help you for a number of different
can be
reasons.
Targeted. It's not necessarily a long game in what you're trying to achieve. It can be short bursts. It can be quick and dirty. If you're trying to generate money on the back of it, that's the long game. But in terms of depending on what you're trying to achieve out of the spend, that's where paid comes into it. Equally, to work with partners, and be that little dot or otherwise, the work with partners that understand both elements of that is really important, because we see a lot of people spending with this media agency and that creative agency and this YouTube experts. If all the three parts aren't aligned, it gets really messy and nobody gets the thing out that they want to. So actually to work with, I think there's, again, probably another talk show, but the importance of aligning all those three together is really key, because people need to understand the interconnection between all those parts.
So it can be super effective, but also without it being targeted, you can waste a lot of money, burn a lot of money quite quickly.
Yes, you can.
Especially through auctions.
Yeah, you can.
Wayne, thanks so much for joining me on TellyCast this week. It's been really fascinating. We've not talked about paid media up to this point, so lots to get involved with, lots to understand, lots of new skill sets to learn as well for IP owners and TV companies out there. But thanks for being on TellyCast, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Well, that's about it for another week's show. TellyCast was produced by Spirit Studios and recorded in London. For more YouTube tips for TV producers and content creators, and other videos with the movers and shakers of the content industry, don't forget to subscribe to TellyCast on YouTube. You can find a link in the episode description, or just search for TellyCast TV on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. We'll be back with another show next week. Until then, stay safe.